What's up, everyone? Welcome to a special edition of Tournament Tactics, where I'm taking a look at the Christmas Day slate for NFL Week 16. I am doing this solo. The boys are with the family, Christmas Eve, dinner, all that good stuff. But the grinding does not stop over here at DFS Army, and we're going to take a look at the Monday Christmas Day 3-game slate. I love a 3-game slate. Really a lot of fun. These are fun to attack, and there's a lot of game theory that we can employ here. So I'm just going to get right into it. You're seeing this on screen here. Let me actually let's make the screen a little larger here. But we've got 3 games coming up this week, and I'm going to jump over to Dom Station to take a look at these game tiles. So we're starting out the slate with the Raiders at the Chiefs. The Raiders are heavy underdogs in this one. The Chiefs at home, the first time these two teams met, it was a more competitive game, at least early, and then eventually the Chiefs took over. But for the most part, this game kind of projects as a domination by the Chiefs and probably a domination by the Chiefs via the run. So I'm really interested in the running back on the Chiefs in this one, and that's, of course, Isaiah Pacheco. We might be able to find some low-cost wide receivers. Of course, Rashee Rice has been spectacular, and he's kind of a core play. Like, this guy's getting 10 targets a game, so he'll be on the list as well. Second game, another blowout situation with the Eagles at home taking on Tommy Cutlets and the New York Giants. And again, this does not look like a great game from a, watching it and it being a good game perspective. And a lot of the fantasy production is really going to come down to, how the Eagles kind of want to play it. I think the Eagles are going to be able to score pretty frequently in this one. The Giants defense is not very good. They shouldn't be able to really do a whole lot to slow down the Eagles. The Eagles shoot themselves in the foot quite a bit this season, though. I mean, they are their own worst enemy. Defensively, been a lot less good than they've been in recent years. So it doesn't completely negate the idea of the Giants, at least generating some offense. Flip side is, for Tommy Cutlets, tonight was the Feast of 7 Fishes. It's full, that hangover from a big meal. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. And then, of course, closing out the slate, the game of the slate, I would say, with the Ravens heading out west to take on the 49ers. These are effectively number 1 and number 2 in our power rankings at the moment. So these two teams look to go really far this year. I don't really necessarily think the Ravens are a favorite in the AFC to make the Super Bowl, but I don't put it past them. And I think the 49ers are the clear-cut favorite in the NFC to get there. So really exciting game with two really, really good teams. One thing of note, both defenses are top quality, but the 49ers really haven't been slowed down at home at all this year. There's no defense that's coming in that's going to slow down that machine, or has done it so far. So that game, I'm kind of going to ignore the fact that the Ravens are pretty good defensively and just say the 49ers should be able to do what they want to do here. They got a 26.25 point team total. And again, when you look at the 49ers team total, 26.25, the Eagles 28.25, and the Chiefs 25.25, those are the teams that look the best from a fantasy perspective. So with all that being said, let's take a look at the power ranking sheet and see what our prediction metric thinks about these. So taking a look here at the power ranking sheet, available, of course, on Sharp App, and reminder that Sharp App is open and free, the premium for everybody through this week. So make sure you check that out as well. We opened it up. So that is the DFS Army sister company that focuses on sports betting tools and advice, and it is open and free. The premium version of it is free for everybody. So make sure to check that out and go Sharp.app and check it out. But taking a look at these 3 games on the power ranking sheet, we could see some interesting notes here. So the Raiders are projecting for just 82 rushing yards and 165 passing yards. That is hashtag not that good, right? Those are terrible numbers. The Chiefs on the flip side here, we've got a 116 rushing yard projection, decent 205 passing yard projection. So the Chiefs look pretty good at home here. And I would say the running game for the Chiefs is really interesting. It's worth noting that Jerick McKinnon is out this week, which just thrusts Isaiah Pacheco into a really high-end role. I don't know how much they're going to mix in Clyde Edwards-Helaire into the mix. It might depend somewhat on the health of Pacheco, but right now Pacheco stands out as one of the better rushing plays on this slate. Taking a look at the second game here, we see that the Giants at Philly, the Eagles are projecting for plenty of rushing yards. A lot of those will come from Jalen Hurts, so it's hard to really toss that onto Swift, but Swift could have one of his games. So he just needs to break one. He really needs big plays. He doesn't get the goal line carries. No tush push for Swift. In the passing yard side, 231 for the Eagles. So just all right. I don't expect the Giants to be super competitive in this one. They can surprise us. The Eagles, like I said, have really just not played well on defense all season long. They've been shooting themselves in the foot. It's like the Bills. They do that too. So they're shooting themselves in the foot all year. What does it mean? It means, there is a scenario where the Giants at some point, like, turnover happens and weird, and all of a sudden they're leading, and that would actually lead to the best kind of game from Jalen Hurts. I would love that if that would happen, but I wouldn't count on it. More likely than not, the Giants are going to be overmatched by a much, much better Eagles team. Finally, we have the big game on the slate, Baltimore at San Francisco, and you can see here Baltimore's again projecting for a lot of rushing yards, but a big part of that projection is going to come from Lamar Jackson himself. The running game in Baltimore has gotten a little weird. I think it's back to Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is not the type of running back that is going to generally do well against a team like San Francisco, especially on the road at San Francisco. So I'm not super high on that spot, but it is Gus Edwards. Probably going to start with Keaton Mitchell and so many injuries to the Baltimore running back crew. Neither team is projecting for a ton of passing yards as well, with San Francisco coming in at 227 with the big rushing number on San Francisco at 127, which, of course, Christian McCaffrey, and we know Christian McCaffrey's a beast. So with that being said, let's jump over and kind of take a look at this slate position by position and get a sense of what we're going to need to be doing here, right? So right off the bat, you could see it's sort of a group of have and have-nots, not just when it comes to the price point, with 4 QBs kind of expensive, with Purdy at the least expensive, 6,700 on DraftKings here. And then the two kind of turds, Aiden O'Connell and Tommy DeVito, super cheap, kind of need a miracle for those to work out, or the alt play, so to speak. So you have a little haves and have-nots here. And of course, the projection shows that as well, with all three of the haves kind of projecting around 20 or more fantasy points, and the two have-nots both projecting below 14 fantasy points. So with that as a backdrop, let's talk about all of these quarterbacks and what we like or don't like. Can anybody be faded on a 3-game slate? I think yes, but you do so at your own peril, but yes. And I think generally the fades that you want to do, because this is the tournament tactics show, so we want to get a little deep into the strategy here. The fades that we want to do are generally, the chalkier the player is, the more we might want to consider fading him. So again, to that backdrop, Jalen Hurts, the highest team total on the slate at 28.25. The real question about the Eagles is, will they take their foot off the gas? There are times when the Eagles just will keep scoring. They don't give a shit. And that would be great for Jalen Hurts' production, right? That's what they're going to need to do, because there's a very solid chance that the Giants won't be competitive. So, if the Eagles jump out to 21 nothing lead, by early in the second quarter, are they going to take the foot off the pedal, or are they going to keep pressing the issue? Can they press the issue enough to the point where Hurts, as the most expensive QB on the slate, makes enough value to justify the price? My initial thought is yes, that they will. That doesn't matter. They'll put a beating on the Giants, or in some miracle happens for the Hurts owners, and the Giants become competitive and score first, and then score a second time. Oh my gosh, turnover, pick six, something crazy happens. And Hurts will need to come back, and that would be the ultimate high-scoring scenario for Jalen Hurts. That being said, if we take a look at Jalen Hurts' returns, he's averaging 24.3 fantasy points per game. He hasn't had a ton of foirays over the 30 points barrier. Here's one against Buffalo a few weeks back. There's another one against the Rams, but he has not had the monster season that I think he could have had. But what he has done is he's been wildly consistent. Look at the passing yard numbers. Not that great. 190, 190, 140, 200, 150. Not that great. So how's he putting up numbers? He only threw for 200 yards when he got to 36. And part of that is because he's just running the football a lot. And more importantly, he's pushing his way into the end zone once or twice a game. So he's just scoring a couple times a game. And that's really where a lot of his fantasy production is coming from. And I don't see that stopping here necessarily. But if it does stop, it's probably because DeAndre Swift stole a few touchdowns. So let's keep that in mind on this 3-game slate where I don't love Swift with Hurts, but I definitely like Swift a lot if Hurts is not in the lineup. So keep it in mind. And even for the Sim Boost rule, I might make a rule on the DFS Army Domination Station Sim Boost that if Swift is in the lineup, to reduce the projection for Hurts by 10% or something like that, just in case. But like I said, I'm not going to avoid pairing them either because it's a 3-game slate and YOLO. You never know what's going to happen. So that's Jalen Hurts, right? Pat Mahomes, as much as Jalen Hurts sort of hasn't like blown us away this year, Pat Mahomes, I would say, has had a disappointing fantasy season. Just look at some of these game logs. It's important to just note this. In the last 5 games, he has not crossed 21 fantasy points. Let's scroll down. 6, 7. There you go. 8, 9, 10. So 11. So in 11 games out of the 15 so far this year, he didn't even cross 21 fantasy points. When he has crossed it, it's 25. And there's this one big game against the Chargers a few weeks ago, which was a very predictable smash. So the problem for me with Mahomes is this game also sets up as a really nice game for Isaiah Pacheco in the running game. Mahomes can throw for some yardage, of course. And I do love Rashee Rice here, and I'll have some Mahomes, but I think I prefer Jalen Hurts just straight up. Mahomes had a hard time adjusting to the lack of talented wide receiver play. But the Chiefs have finally figured out that Rashee Rice is the best of their mediocre crew, and they have gone pretty heavy into the Rashee Rice target, bandwagon, so to speak. So we'll keep that in mind. Next, of course, is Lamar. And Lamar is a real up and down kind of play. He's on the road. Oh, you can't see the sheet like this. Here we go. Lamar is, the Ravens are on the road facing a really good quality defense. I don't know that that's going to ruin Lamar. Lamar can do it with his legs. He can do it with his arm. A lot of different ways. I know that San Francisco is going to be scoring in this game, or I really do believe they will be, which will cause Lamar to have to react. And if they're going to stay in this game, I do think they're going to need a monster game from Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's going to be one of the more popular plays at QB. I think he'll be one of the lower popular, but still more than O'Connell and DeVito, but probably the 3rd lowest owned quarterback, most likely. And I do think it's telling that, again, Lamar, for all of his flaws, when he does put a game together, he could put up a monster score. Now, of course, this game is on the road. The Ravens are, only projected for 20 points in it. So it's not the obvious smash spot, but I do think Lamar is an interesting play. The biggest negative to me for Lamar, especially the way that DraftKings, if you look at the Fanduel pricing, okay, I'm getting a monster discount for Lamar relative to Jalen Hurts. But on DraftKings, they're priced the same, and Hurts is such a better play that Lamar is really just like a tournament upside kind of play. And one of the challenges with Lamar is who you're pairing him up with. I think the top guy is probably Isaiah Likely. We've seen good games from Odell Beckham recently, so it could be any one of these guys, but I'm definitely going to get some Lamar exposure on this. He will not be my first choice quarterback, but he certainly will be in the mix. Next up, of course, Brock Purdy, and I think Brock Purdy might be the best of them here. In a weird twist, Brock Purdy's been putting up numbers. He doesn't throw it a lot. It's amazing how he scores what he does. Last week, 4 touchdowns, got 25 fantasy points. He's averaging 21 and a half fantasy points per game. He's not needed to do a whole lot the past few weeks. They have just been blowing teams out of the water. But here's the thing. Purdy steps up when teams can slow down Christian McCaffrey. I'm not saying that the Ravens are going to slow down McCaffrey, but the Ravens are pretty good against the run. They're good against the pass. They're good against everything. They're actually better versus the pass on the season. They're allowing 32 fewer yards per game than average to opposing wide receivers, but they're also allowing 10 fewer yards per game to a few opposing running backs, which puts them above average. So can the Ravens slow down Christian McCaffrey? If they can, that's when Purdy will do his thing. The other thing is Purdy also can throw touchdowns to Christian McCaffrey, which makes it a little weird. But that truly is how the scenario where Purdy will shine. The nice thing about Purdy is, of course, if you're playing him, you got to just stack him with, one of the other three guys. So it's going to be Debo, Ayuk, or Kittle. The last two quarterbacks on the slate, Aiden O'Connell and Tommy DeVito. Listen, I love Tommy DeVito as much as anybody. How you doing? Right? I love it. I love the story. By the way, did you guys see that Tommy DeVito and his mom are doing a Rayo's commercial? Like, did they watch our show from 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks? We've been talking about Tommy DeVito and the sauce. I just watched a commercial for Rayo's with Tommy DeVito and his mom. And his mom was wearing a tracksuit with the word homemade bedazzled on the butt. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. She made him cutlets. It looked amazing. So predictions came true. Even non-fantasy predictions coming true right here from Tournament Tactics. But as far as this game goes, yeah, I mean, like between O'Connell and DeVito, O'Connell on the road, that is a hostile environment. Kansas City is a good defense. You could see here in the power rankings, Vegas is not projecting well at all. 164 passing yards. So for me, as much as the Raiders did what they did last week and put the beating on the Chargers, right? The beating of a lifetime on the Chargers. I don't see it here. I'm not going there. I'm just going to say, Aiden O'Connell, I'm going to take a pass, right? Tommy Cutlets. So like these guys, do we need to play them? That's the real question. Do we need to play them at all? Do I need to play the Turdley quarterback on a slate like this? My sensibility is probably not, but there is a scenario where Tommy DeVito could get there. It would require just everybody else to kind of have a regular game. If they're all hitting their average, if Jalen Hurts and Mahomes, Lamar and Purdy are all in the 25 zone, which is absolutely within reason, like putting up 25, and DeVito puts up a 19 for 3.5K less, DeVito is going to be the nuts quarterback. So he will be on my mix. I think I'm going to leave out O'Connell, and I'm leaning towards, because I would like to fade 2 out of the 6. I'm leaning towards fading Mahomes and O'Connell right now. I think that game, heavy running back usage. Mahomes expensive. He hasn't really getting there. So those are the 2 that I'm personally leaning to fading as of right now. In order for me, I think, and I agree, and we'll take a look at the cheat sheet here. But like I said, my order, and I agree with the sheet. My order probably would be Jalen Hurts is your safest play, your cash play. Brock Purdy, just a solid overall play in the best game. Then I go with Lamar, Cutlets, and then Mahomes from there. All right. So let's shift gears and talk about the running back position. Now, it's a short slate and there aren't that many running backs to pick from. So we're going to have to be careful. We're going to choose wisely, right? So right up top, of course, Christian McCaffrey, the best play. What more can we say about McCaffrey? He's getting all the snaps. They don't give it to anybody else. They are one-minded over in San Francisco when it comes to the running back position. I'm going to take a mea culpa. When I was doing fantasy prognostication for your season-long team, one of the things that I was concerned about with Christian McCaffrey, and one of the reasons I was like, maybe let's focus on the wide receivers early, which of course turned out not as good over Christian McCaffrey. And one of my argument was, I was like, I expect that the 49ers will be in the playoffs. And by the time you're in your fantasy playoffs, they're going to be looking to manage the workload for Christian McCaffrey, lower it, not overwork. We got to get to the playoffs, got to keep our guy healthy. I thought we were going to start to get these games where he's 50% and they're working in other guys. And that just has not happened. They're just working it. They're working it so much. They're working it so much. They put their thing down, flip it, and reverse it. That's how much they work it with Christian McCaffrey. It was, if I had to produce, I would have done like 3 takes of that. We had to do that in just one. Straight filming. He put the thing down, flip it, and reverse it for Christian McCaffrey. They work him. So he's getting a ton of work. Put up like 50 points last week. Is this a tougher matchup? Sure. Does it matter? Probably not. The main issue here, of course, is the salary level for Christian McCaffrey. It's just hard to afford a $9,600 player in DFS, especially on a short slate when you don't have that many options for cheapies to make it work. Can we make it work? I don't know. We'll see. But of course, everybody loves Christian McCaffrey. Saquon Barkley, I think, is absolutely playable as well. He's a little pricey, but not that bad. And the reality is with Barkley, even in these games, let's get him on screen here, but even these cutlet games, they have to go to Barkley. They don't have a lot of other options for the team. So if you go back a couple of games to the Packer game, 20 carries, 4 targets. When the Giants are winning the game at Washington, there's the big one. He's getting a lot of work. The problem is, I don't think they're going to be winning this game. So there's risk there. Anytime you play a losing running back, it's generally not good in DFS. Think about today. Think about any day. If the game is close, it works out. But the minute a team falls behind quite a bit, that running back just stops getting the usage that you want. It happens all the time. So I do like Saquon Barkley. Part of it is because there's not that many options. But I think the second best option on the slate is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco was getting 20 touches per game before he got hurt. He's coming back just in time in a great matchup against the Raiders team that is not very good against the run. But most importantly, Jerick McKinnon is out. So he is out, which just reduces the number of players vying for touches. Is it going to be Pacheco? They'll probably shift Clyde Edwards-Helaire into the McKinnon role of sort of the scat back and allow Pacheco to smash it up the middle. I think this is the kind of game where the Chiefs kind of dominate at home. They're massive favorites, and everything about the script says Pacheco scores a touchdown. So to me, Pacheco's a solid play. I think he's going to get a touchdown in this game. And that's all we really need at 6,400. We just need the one tutty and we're good to go. He does catch a pass as well on occasion. So there's everything makes sense. He should be super high owned and rightfully so. The other 2 starters on the slate, you've got DeAndre Swift. I already talked about him a little bit. Swift is great. I like Swift. He's a good player. I actually love him in the spot. I think he's probably the sneakiest play on the slate, in the sense that it's hard to be sneaky on a 3-game when you're a starting running back, but he's sneaky in the sense that, yes, the thought is Jalen Hurts, tush push, takes all the touchdowns, right? My thought is, okay, great, but the Giants defense is not very good. I think the Eagles are going to be routing them in this one. And in a rout, what ends up happening is the opposing defense, again, they're on the road. They're in Philly. It's Christmas Day. They're all like, let's get out of here. Let's go home already. And what ends up happening is the defense just stops playing about 100%, starts playing at 95%. And that's when running backs break out for long touchdown runs. So given the lack of quality running backs on the slate, and there is a lack, right? Who's good? Christian McCaffrey, 9,500. Fuck, I want to play him, but can I afford him? Probably not. We've got Pacheco. My next favorite is going to be DeAndre Swift, D-Swizz. I'm going to hope he gets that touchdown. But I think there's a path to putting up enough points, maybe even without the touchdown, we'll need 100 yards. We'll need something. We'll need something out of him. But it will take the Eagles sort of probably being up big for Swift to get us there. But the flip side is, he also only has to beat the other running backs. I'm going to tell you why there are some trouble at running back. And what so in the punts in a second, but he only has to beat the other guys. Josh Jacobs probably coming back from injury. Questionable. So I was expecting Josh Jacobs to play, and I still expect him to play. If he doesn't play, then that will make Zamir White at 5K somewhat interesting as a discount running back. If Jacobs does play, I think this is a tough matchup for him. Doesn't mean he can't put up some numbers and score some fantasy points, but again, his team is a massive underdog. He has not done well in games where his team loses. Again, if we go back through the record here, the good games, here's that first KC game, and actually he did a couple weeks ago, but part of the deal was that the Raiders were just coming off of the new coach. They came out hot in that game, and eventually the Chiefs kind of rallied. But Josh Jacobs did a lot of his damage early, so there's that. But look at the losses. When they're losing, here, the big win, he had a 21-pointer. Here's a loss to Detroit, only 16. Loss to Chicago, 5. They actually won, and he didn't do that great. He's even had some wins. But there's a better game and a win. So usually when the team is losing, there's the Pittsburgh game, not so great. Usually when the team is losing, Buffalo and Denver, he's not having as good of a game. Now, that being said, Josh Jacobs, the nice thing about him is when he's in the game, he's the workhorse. The negative, of course, is he's got a quad injury. That kind of stuff can re-aggravate. He's questionable today. So I think it's a scary play. Like, kind of, I'll call it a GPP only pivot with Jacobs. He would not be my first button push on this slate at all. So, I wanted to mention also that the cheapies on the slate aren't that cheap. Like, all right, normally Clyde Edwards-Helaire, kind of a backup. He had a great game last week at low ownership, but now with Pacheco back, Helaire is just priced too high. Gus Edwards probably going to get most of the carries for the Ravens. Could be interesting. He's a touchdown scorer, but he doesn't do a whole lot in the passing game. It's very rare that he gets more than one target in a game. So it's just harder for him to get there, especially against any elite 49ers defense. And then there's no one else. It's just the backups. And you don't really want to be playing backups on something like this. So for my top pairing, it would be McCaffrey, it would be Pacheco, and Swift. Those are my top 3. With Jacobs sort of making the back burner, Barkley sort of being, I'm going to call Barkley a little more of like a hopeful play. All playable, but less good. Let's jump over to wide receiver. And again, we can get some volume out of our wide receiver group up top. And then hopefully we're going to have to find some cheapies that make it work. I think a lot of those cheapies might come from like a team like the Giants. They got everybody's a cheapie on the Giants. But starting all the way at the top, of course, we have AJ Brown, and he's connected to Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. And a lot of the way I like to play these is just, if I'm playing Hurts, I'm going to mix in AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. Of course, I'm going to favor Brown a little bit, but it could be anybody or no one. Again, there's a great chance that they don't need to throw that much in that game. So it's going to be a matter of whim almost. They can run. They could score via the rush. There's a lot of different ways the Eagles are going to be able to score in that game. So it's hard to really get super excited or super confident. I'm excited, but it's hard to get super confident about, let's say, Brown or Smith. But I think there's a pretty good chance that at least one of those two will put up a really nice number. Guess right. It's been Smith most of the past 5 or 6 weeks. Let's see here. 11, 24, 24. So 10 targets, 11 targets, 8 and 8. So he had, he's been averaging before this past game against Seattle, he had been averaging something closer to 10 targets per game. AJ Brown, just getting tons of targets as well. Hasn't had the big smash spot recently, but has had them this year. And it's just variance. You give me 13 targets for AJ Brown. I'm happy if he doesn't smash. I mean, like, that's where you get the 41, the 25, the 20, 23. a big, interesting decision that we have to make on this slate is, do we want to pay up for one of these stud wide receivers, or do we want to forego that and get CM Sizzles, Christian McCaffrey in the lineup? And that's something that every player is going to have to make a decision on. Of course, I love Christian McCaffrey. You don't come here for that. You know we love Christian McCaffrey. You love Christian McCaffrey. Everybody loves Christian McCaffrey. But can we afford it? So, or can we get that production from someone else? Looking at the rest of the upper tier, Deebo Samuel's been getting it done lately. He just keeps getting it done. Not a ton of volume, but he can rush for a touchdown. He just gets it done a lot of ways. He's also a yak machine. You know, a big thing about Deebo's game is when he catches it, he runs with it. He gets a lot of yardage, even on fewer targets, like 7 receptions, 149, 4 receptions, 116. He gets it done a lot of times. He does it with efficiency, which, you know, it kind of messes with projection models, if I'm being honest. We like to see targets and volume, and Deebo just gets it done without all of that, but without as much volume. But whatever. He's probably someone I'll more stick with pairing with Purdy than anything else, but solid play, just a little expensive. Devontae Adams, tougher matchup. The team put up 63 points in the last game that they played. Even then, Devontae Adams didn't exactly like go bananas. He got 27, which is just barely making value for a 7K price point. I think he's going to continue to get 10 to 12 targets. He'll get it in this game. This is a tougher matchup. Chiefs defense is good. They're at home. Again, that is an intimidating place. Arrowhead is loud and intimidating. So there's that. Vegas does not like the Raiders to put up a lot of points in Arrowhead, only 15. So there's that. So it's going to be tough to pay up for Devontae Adams on like a losing team that is not scheduled or not projected for more than 2 touchdowns. It's just not that many touchdowns to go around. So I'm probably going to, you know, be under the field weight on someone like that. Ayuk, you know, if it's not Samuel, it's probably going to be Ayuk or Kittle. That's just how the 49ers operate. It's going to be one eventually. And I like what we said on the cheat sheet here, which was, you know, he's going to have his big game. It's coming. You never know when it's going to come. It's been Deebo for the last few weeks, but Ayuk is due for one of his big smash games. 100 yards, touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, 28 fantasy points. Plus actually 8 receptions, so like a 35-pointer. Could happen this week. I like the price, 6,700. So it's a lot more palatable maybe than Deebo now because he's a full 1,000 less. Top play on the slate is going to be one of the top plays. Probably the top play is Rashee Rice. Should be super high owned as well. Rice, again, let's pull up his recent production. Look at these targets. 10, 9, 10, 9. As soon as they figured out that, hey, let's throw it to Rashee, all he does is catch everything that you throw his way. It's not like 8 for 9, 7 for 10, 9 for 9. He's doing everything you want. Last week, 24 points. Didn't even cross the 100-yard barrier. 10 targets, 100 yards, touchdown. That's 30 points right there for Rashee Rice. And that is a reasonable expectation in this game. Rashee Rice is a standalone play. I don't need to have Mahomes to play Rice, right? At this price, at 6,500, you could just throw him in your lineup. So I'm very interested in Rashee. I want to talk about the Baltimore wide receivers as a group. I think they're all acceptable plays. Zay Flowers, a little bit too expensive to sort of feel really comfortable with. He's not been consistent. He's very hit or miss. Yeah, over the last 4 games, 2 to 4 targets and then 8 to 10. So like what he's doing is all over the place. Every once in a while, he gets peppered with targets, 2, 10, 8, 4, 6, right? The target numbers are all over the place. He had a couple of big games mixed in. I think they're going to need somebody to step up. Is it going to be Zay Flowers with a Q tag? I don't know. GPP only, not trustable, on the road. Again, there's all these reasons. I want to try to focus on the cheaper guys. And particularly, I think Odell is an acceptable play at 4,300. Odell every once in a while pops as well. Look at the target number, 3, 10, 5, 7. He has an illness. He's fine. He's healthy. This is a big spot. And this is one of the reasons why I kind of like Odell. Odell likes the spotlight. He likes to do it in prime time. And this is a big spot. So I kind of like taking a shot on Odell at 4,300. I think it's a risk worth taking. Does not need to do a ton, and we know he's an explosive player, and they're going to need that to have any sort of a chance. So I love Odell. He's one of my favorite pay down options on this particular slate. The last guy that I like him the least is Bateman. Let me find Rashad Bateman. Yeah, 3,300. Oh, well, there it is. He's so cheap that actually it is interesting. Rashad Bateman has been getting targets as well, averaging about 4 targets a game here. Looks like 6, 4, 5, 2, 4. So he's averaging about 4 targets per game. Has not done much with them. But I've seen him targeted in the end zone and drop one, or, he hasn't caught many touchdowns, but he's had a couple of opportunities. Listen, Rashad Bateman is he's approaching a bust. I mean, I don't want to call him a bust because he's still in the NFL, but he's basically a bust of a player. I think he was taken in the first round of the real NFL draft. It's been a massive disappointment. Maybe it wasn't. I could be wrong. Maybe it was the second round, but he was taken high in the draft. I feel like it was the first round, and he's been a bit of a bust. But who cares? 3,300 on DraftKings. We need these priced players. So I'm fine with it. I will have some Bateman just for the price, but I do prefer Odell, weird as it goes. And of course, Isaiah Likely, but we'll get to him at the tight end section. Looking at some other possible plays here. Of course, the Giants guys, and they're all a bunch of turtly guys, but Wan'Dale Robinson usually gets a ton of targets most games, does not do a ton with them, but he'll usually see 5 to 7 targets in a game. He's again, relatively inexpensive. Wan'Dale has burned us many, many times when we're on him, and he looks better when we're not. But you never know which way they go with the football or who gets the touchdown on the Giants. But I don't mind Wan'Dale for the price. The other two guys, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt are the other two. It's just, the Eagles secondary has been absolutely bad. That is the spot where you want to attack the Eagles. Not good. James Bradbury might be like the most burned corner in the NFL. Darius Slay, I don't even think he's playing anymore. But Slay has had a terrible season. So this is a big reason why the Eagles have struggled this year. Their secondary has just fallen off a cliff. Last year, these guys were shut down, and I don't know what the hell's going on with them. But Bradbury, Slay, terrible. So you kind of want these cheap Giants pass catchers. Again, is Tommy DeVito good? No, but who cares? Cheap Giants pass catchers. I like it. So with that being said, which one is the best of them? I don't know. I'm going to lean Wan'Dale. He is the most likely to get the targets. But if we take a look at the other guys here, Wan'Dale 4, 7, 5, 4. The scores haven't really been great. That might be, if we got to 17, great. But for the most part, the whole season, it's been a lot of that. Every once in a while, those few targets pop for like an acceptable double-digit score, but it's not great. Darius Slayton, where is he? He at least gets thrown a deep ball. He's got the better chance of sort of one reception, 60 yards, a touchdown kind of thing. But it's not Tommy Cutlett's game. But at least he does that. He does see a bunch of targets most weeks. Not that different, about 4 or 5 targets a game, more often than not. So, these guys are all sketchy. They're cheap for a reason. If a player is at 3,400 and we're in week 16, they're probably correctly priced at that price. You're not going to find any crazy bargains here. You're not going to find a super mispriced player. But, what I like about these guys, again, is just the fact that Eagles should be attacked via the pass. Their secondary hasn't been good. And so if matchup means anything, again, the team total is disgusting. Only 15 points or 14 on the team total. It's not good. But if matchup means anything, maybe a couple of these guys can get a couple of catches and do enough for us in the 3K range to be viable. Any other plays that might be interesting in this cheap zone? I would say, yeah, Justin Watson. Oh, man, it's so gross. Ever since they gave him the shot against the Eagles and he dropped the 3 passes, they're like, all right, nope, not for you. You blew it. You fucking blew it, Justin Watson. Ever since that one game. And then, so he's getting 1 or 2 targets. It's going to be really tough for him to make value. It's more of a showdown turd kind of a play for me than something I'd want to play on a main slate. That's for sure. And there's really no one else down here. The only guy I think I neglected to mention was Jacoby Myers. And I think Jacoby Myers is fine. I don't mind him. Yeah. At 5,200, you got to click that button. I'm not scared to click that button. It's fine. Fine play. Not somebody I'm purposely looking to aggressively target. So let me see something here. I'm starting to put sort of a lineup together of let's call it like my favorites. And I'm trying to see if I can make something work with Christian McCaffrey. So probably going to have to use one of those super cheap wide receivers to make it work, but we'll see. Yeah, Rashee Rice. We're not going to be able. We're only at 43.20. Haven't even put a QB in there. You put a quarterback in there. Oh boy, right? 37.25. So it's going to be. This is what I was thinking. It will be very, very difficult this week to squeeze in CMC. But let's see. All right, jumping over to the tight end position. Of course, at the very, very top is Travis Kelce. A disappointing season so far for Travis Kelce. He's busy. He's got other shit going on, guys. Cut him a break. He's got a lot going on. This guy's doing commercials nonstop. He's taking Pfizer shots every other day for those commercials. Got T-Swizz coming over. She's like, I want you to spend time with me. I'm your girlfriend. And why? You ever have like your girl's like, why are you playing video games all day? Why are you gambling all day? What are you doing? Why are you staring at your phone? I'm here. I'm wearing sexy clothes. You should look at me. And I'm like, listen, I'm making lineups. Not now. And then it's a fight. So with Taylor Swift, you can't just be like, yo, I'm busy. She's like, Travis Kelce, I want to go hang out with Blake Lively and celebrities. You want to come out? And he's like, okay, I guess I won't study tape. Maybe that's what's going on with Travis Kelce. I don't know. But he's had a bit of a disappointing season. Of course, he's a great play. Once again, we know the upside is there. But he hasn't gotten it done at this price, and I don't think you can afford him. Like, it's going to be a very unique lineup that has Travis Kelce, and you can't afford it. There's no value. There's not enough value on a slate like this to really squeeze a Kelce in your lineup. So just be aware. If you put him in there, I think it's unique already. If you put him in there without Mahomes, I think it's almost crazy. When Kelce has done enough to produce at the $7,500 level, it's highly likely that Mahomes is having a really like a 30-plus pointer, which probably puts him in the discussion for a quarterback puts up 30-plus on the slate. They're probably the best quarterback. So I'm probably going to reserve him for Kelce only. George Kittle, yeah, why not? Right? It's usually one of these guys that gets it done for the 49ers. I think Kittle's the least likely between Ayuk, Samuel, and himself to be the guy that has the best day, but you never know. So he'll stay in my mix, but the misses for George Kittle are pretty rough. And the volume's just not there. It's the same thing. The story is the same with all San Francisco players. It's like no volume, but massive production. How do you deal with that? I don't know. It's usually done for Kittle on one big play, one broken play, and get the whole thing done. Darren Waller is back for the Giants, and this is actually not a bad play at all. We just talked about how terrible the Giants wide receiver group is. They're uninspiring. Wan'Dale, all 5'6" of him is the best of them. But then here's Darren Waller. He's a vet. Wily, got the neck tats. Go up to Tommy Cutlets. He's like, I got you. And Cutlets is like, all right, I'll throw it to you. And then all of a sudden he gets 5, 6, 7 targets. So, Darren Waller, I think, is an interesting play here. He knocked the rust off from the long absence last week, and I think he'll come back this week and be even more involved. So he's somebody I'm interested in. Dallas Goedert with Hurts. Sure, why not? At this price, 9 targets last week for the week before. So the target numbers are fluctuating. We haven't seen really the smash game or the really great game since the return of Goddard. Maybe this is it though. Again, the Giants could be attacked any way that the Eagles want. They're not going to have to go to any one guy versus another. They're just going to go where they want to go with the ball. They're going to be scoring a lot. They have the highest team total. I think they could spread the love around, and certainly Dallas Goedert could be one of the guys who benefits with the tutty. Isaiah Likely, I think, should be probably the most popular on the slate because he's had a couple smash games in a row. Again, neither on huge volume, but at 4,200, 6, 7, and 6 targets over the last 3 weeks. I'm good with that. That's okay. Who the hell else is getting 6 or 7 targets, including red zone targets and goal line targets for 4,200 on the slate? No one. We already talked about Odell Beckham's like the only player at 4,200 that is interesting, and then you got to go down to the 3K range. So I think Likely, sure. I love him as a potential tight end play. I love him even more in your Lamar Jackson lineup. If I had Lamar in here, I'd just go Lamar, probably put Likely, probably put Odell in there, just call it a day. A really interesting approach. I'm going to talk a little bit about 3-game strategy at the very end here, but Likely's fine. The only other pay down option, and I'm mildly interested. So if we want to get even cheaper and we need to just put a turd in here, of course, Bellinger is the Giants' second tight end. I don't like it. What I do like, again, I don't want to say I like it. I'm trying to say this properly. There is one player sub 3K that might get some targets and might get us a score greater than 0. Has a good chance. And that's Austin Hooper. You can't even find Austin Hooper. Look how far I have to scroll down. Look, is anybody going to play this guy? Look how far you have to scroll to find Austin Hooper. All the way down here. But positions already filled. Oh, well. If I want to get Christian McCaffrey in here, I actually think I have to use Hooper in the flex. But Austin Hooper should be getting the start with Mike Mayer out at tight end for the Raiders. So somebody's got to get the work, and it might be Austin Hooper. He usually gets 1 or 2 targets per game. I'm trying to see if there was any point in the season where he got like more than 2 targets, but nope. He has peaked at 2. And again, I am not promising anything at all with Austin Hooper. He's probably not going to get you a 0, especially with Mike Mayer out. Maybe he'll set a record and see 3 or 4 targets. Okay. But that's about as good as we can expect here. So don't look for anything great. Yeah, he should be the starter though. There it is. Even the blurb is talking about it. But the main reason I like him is that at 2,500, when you use a $2,500 player on a 3-game slate, your lineup looks different than everybody else's because they're not using that guy. Most people are going to pay for one of these 4K or above tight ends. So to have a $2,500 player in your lineup, we have to compare him really to other options like Wan'Dale for 3,900, like or Slayton for 33, or Watson. It's all of these turds. One of them, they're all gonna, some of them will put up some points, and one of them will put up the most points of that group, and that's really all that matters. It doesn't matter the raw. It doesn't matter that they don't put up 5x or 4x salary on a 3-game slate. That's not as relevant as just like relative to the salary set that they're comparing to, who was the best scorer. And so you have to throw all the tight ends and the wide receivers in the mix and just be like, it doesn't matter, but who's the 3K guy that did the best? So again, Hooper, outside shot at a miracle, I guess. But the fact is he's starting, and that's good for us. I do like throwing Likely in here, as he's probably my favorite. Again, depending on QB dependent. All right, let's jump over to the defenses here. And actually, let's see what the cheat sheet said about the defenses here. And yeah, I do agree. Top dog on the slate is probably the Chiefs. They're at home. They're an actual good defense. And that's really all that matters. Aiden O'Connell, not that good of a quarterback. Of course, he's coming off the monster game, but that was against a Chargers team that had purposefully quit. The Chiefs have not purposely quit. They're going to be playing their best, and I do like the Chiefs as well. I started them over the Browns in my most expensive dynasty fantasy football league. So I'm certainly very, very hopeful that they can deliver a solid score. I think these other defenses are all in play. Eagles, fine. 49ers, sure, why not? Giants, maybe. Right? The Eagles shoot themselves in the foot somehow. That's how the Giants stay in the game. Sure, it's GPP only. Ravens, listen, no team has done anything to really slow down the 49ers at home on offense. I don't know that this is going to be the place, but at least the Ravens are a good defense for 2,500. That's what I could say for them. And then the Raiders, on the road at the Chiefs, I don't like that one bit. So I think it's going to be the Chiefs primarily, but there is, again, merit to looking for some of these pay down options. Even the Ravens, again, terrible. The 49ers are not a team that give up points that turn the ball over, do any of that stuff, but, worth a look. So jumping back over to our lineup here, let's see what happens when we throw the Chiefs in there. So note that to try to build a lineup with Christian McCaffrey in it, and again, this is just my McCaffrey experiment. To try to build one with him in there, you really need to super punt away. So let's just kind of, again, remind ourselves, we're effectively having to give up on any of these super stud wide receivers. And we're going to have to stick in the middling zone. So what if I put in Odell, who I kind of liked, and see what happens here? 4,600. Can't get to anybody. Might have to go double tight end. But you really can't get to anybody here. So last options, either go all the way down to one of the Giants turds, which is never fun. Look at the price drop. Myers, Wandale, Slayton, Tucker. Man, it's brutal. Hyatt all the way down here. So you either have to play like a Giants turd, and then you can, fit DeAndre Swift. Actually, it's not too bad. So again, in a lineup that, hey, we made it work, right? But the problem with this lineup is you got to play a 3K turd in order to make it work, and a second mediocre wide receiver. Now, if I take out McCaffrey and Swift, and I'm willing, and this is what I was saying earlier, you're going to choose between McCaffrey or a stud wide receiver. So let's say I put Swift in up top over here. Now I could play a stud wide receiver. And if I kind of put an Ayuk, I can now upgrade a second spot off of a 0 to more of a quality play. And actually, I almost like this version where I still put in a Hyatt. Oh, yeah, I like the way this looks. I still put in a Hyatt, but now I got Devontae Smith. So take a look at this lineup. Brock Purdy with Ayuk in a stack. Chiefs defense, Swift, Pacheco, Rashee Rice. What's Rice going to do? 10 targets. What's Smith going to do? 10 targets, right? Hyatt is just a turd. Likely one of the better tight ends on the slate. Ayuk, we're just rolling the dice that's the guy that gets it done with Purdy this week. So I don't mind this approach. A couple interesting things about this lineup, right? Pacheco sort of like leverage against Mahomes. Swift is a bit of leverage against Hurts. So I'm not saying this is a great lineup, but just to show that it could be done or what it looks like with or without Christian McCaffrey in it. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I want to talk a little bit about strategy with the 3-game slate on the Domination Station Optimizer. So let's jump onto that real quick and just kind of show how I'd want to set this up. A couple of things that we've noted in back testing. Number one, and I'm seeing it in building, is you do want to allow for plenty of tight end in the flex. That is a way to win these 3-game slates. You don't want to be too restrictive about what's in the flex. The other thing is we want to fade some chalk. So yeah, just because, like, especially we saw this the other day, right? With Diggs. We saw it with Diggs a couple days ago. We saw it with Hill last week, with Tyreek the previous week, right? What happened with Diggs? Well, he was the only kind of big name wide receiver on the slate, and he ends up getting to be 70% owned, and he fails massively in the slate. And it was a reminder, and Diggs had not been that good recently. It was like, why are you playing so much Diggs? Well, he's the only guy who's good, and, it's such a good matchup, and he ends up failing. I needed 2 more Diggs receptions, by the way, to win the what was it, the tiers or the flea or whatever I was in. I was like, man, I think I finished in 7th place. And 1 or 2 more receptions from either him or Knox Still stings. Difference between $300 and $15K. Like, that's DFS. DFS is a game of like just these little slim margins that make the difference between $100, $200, and 20,000. It's insanity, right? But that happens in all these slates. So once we get ownerships in, we just don't even have yet on the slate. So it's still not, ownerships aren't out yet. They'll be here. But understand that the way I approach a 3-game is, if you see some player over-owned, especially wide receiver, I want to go below the field on those type of players. If Deebo Samuel is showing 70% owned, I just as soon say, you know what? I'm just going to fade it and let him beat me if he's going to beat me. Now, he's not showing that, but that's the kind of stuff I would be doing. Or if a random player like a Devontae Adams, who is usually good, he's going to get a lot of targets. Like, he's good, but can he put up a monster score? I don't know. If anybody starts to be this crazy over-owned, there's going to be merit to fading them. It's that simple. As of right now, I think Rashee Rice will be the highest owned. He's a pretty good play, though. Like, I don't want to fade that, but maybe we'll have to see what the ownership comes in on. But it looks like Rashee Rice will be the highest owned. Brown and Devontae Smith, maybe not. So maybe we'll want to go over on some of these lower owned guys that look like they're popping. At running back, same difference. Like, we might get, if Christian McCaffrey projects at 80% or 75, some crazy number, there will be some merit to fading that, exactly as I showed on screen, where I say, hey, the people who are playing Christian McCaffrey, fine, he could have a great game, but they have to use effectively 2 turds. I can play, 2 7K wide receivers in my lineup. They can't really play any of those guys. So there is, the cost, there's a cost and effect for paying up. So generally what I try to do is on these type of slates is keep my exposures no more than 40% across the board on these skill positions. And my one little trick that we talk about for all of these slates is to make sure to allow some players versus your defense when you run an optimizer for a 3-game slate. It's more important on a 2-game slate, but it is also important on a 3-game slate. You don't want to allow the defense to dictate, to like fully remove all the players from an opposing team. We see it in showdowns all the time that defense against is not such a, it's not a killer blow to all the offensive pieces. When a defense does well or okay, it doesn't mean the offensive pieces it's facing all are terrible. That is just not why defenses score. They score off turnovers. We just saw it today, like the Jacksonville game where Lawrence threw a bunch of interceptions, fumbles. He's terrible out there. But Calvin Ridley still had a smash. Players can smash against a good defense. Usually running backs don't do as well, but players can smash against a great defense. So allow a player or two versus your defense. That's going to do it for Tournament Tactics Christmas Day. Remember, hit that like button. You make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Here, we are still getting, remember the Sharp App promotion. Sharp App is free. Sharp App Pro. That is our sports betting site. It is free. And in addition, DFS Army running through New Year's Day, the big 2024 24% off special. Promo code 2024 gets you 24% off any DFS Army subscription. I recommend doing VIP. Why? Because you'll lock it in for 24% off. It will stay there. It's $79.99. 24% off. That's about $20. So you get in for about $59.99. New subscribers only. And the big thing there is we never raise the price on you. We do not split the sports up at DFS Army like the other sites are starting to do, just trying to milk you for more money. DFS Army is always about average Joes competing on a level field with the pros. That's what we do with the Dom Station Optimizer, the research stations, and all the cool stuff. The updates are coming to the website as well. We have a lot of cool new tools coming out. So make sure to check that out. And good luck on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful holiday with your family. And hopefully we have a fun day tomorrow watching games and with a rooting interest.